What is the covenant of good faith? The covenant of good faith, often called the covenant of good faith and fair dealing, is a legal principle that exists in every contract, including many employment relationships. In simple terms, it means that the parties to a contract must act honestly, fairly, and in a way that does not destroy the right of the other party to receive the benefits of the agreement. Even if the contract does not explicitly say so, the law implies this covenant to ensure fairness. The origins of the covenant of good faith can be traced back to contract law in the early 20th century. Courts realized that strict reliance on the literal words of a contract could sometimes lead to unfair results, especially when one party took opportunistic actions that undermined the spirit of the agreement. To address this, judges began to imply a duty of good faith performance. Over time, the principle spread across many areas of law, including insurance contracts, commercial transactions, and employment agreements. In employment law, the covenant of good faith plays a particularly interesting role. Under the traditional at-will employment doctrine in the United States, an employer can generally fire an employee at any time for almost any reason. However, some courts have recognized that discharging an employee in bad faith may violate the implied covenant, creating an exception to at-will employment. For example, an employer who fires a worker the day before their pension vests solely to avoid paying benefits may be found to have breached the covenant of good faith. The key elements of the covenant of good faith are honesty. Neither party may act dishonestly or misrepresent their intentions. Fair dealing. Each party must avoid actions that unfairly deprive the other of the expected benefits of the bargain. Good faith performance. Parties must perform contractual obligations in a reasonable and faithful manner, consistent with the purpose of the contract. An example outside employment law makes this clearer. Suppose a landlord leases commercial space to a business and promises to maintain common areas. If the landlord intentionally neglects those areas to drive out the tenant and rent to a higher-paying tenant, this may violate the covenant of good faith, even if the lease does not spell out every maintenance duty. In employment, courts are divided on how far the covenant reaches. Some states, such as California, have recognized wrongful discharge claims based on breach of the covenant of good faith, especially when employers act in ways that are malicious or designed to deprive employees of earned compensation. Other states are more cautious, fearing that a broad covenant could undermine the flexibility of at-will employment. A curiosity is that the covenant of good faith is often described as protecting the spirit rather than the letter of the contract. This means that courts look at the broader purpose of the agreement, not just the literal words. For instance, even if a contract gives one party discretion, that discretion cannot be exercised in a way that is arbitrary, malicious, or intended to deny the other party the contract's benefits. The covenant also plays a central role in insurance law. Insurers must handle claims in good faith, meaning they cannot unreasonably delay payments, deny coverage without investigation, or put their own financial interests ahead of the insured's rights. Bad faith insurance claims can lead to significant damages, reflecting the seriousness of breaching this covenant. In conclusion, the covenant of good faith is an implied promise in every contract that the parties will act honestly, fairly, and consistently with the contract's purpose. In employment law, it sometimes serves as a limit on at-will firing, ensuring that employers cannot act maliciously to deprive workers of their contractual benefits. Across the legal landscape, it protects the integrity of agreements by preventing opportunism and enforcing the principle that contracts are about trust as well as words. Above, I leave you more videos so you can continue learning law. Remember to give us a like and subscribe.